Hey all, hope you're doing well and having a blessed Advent. So this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of video than what I've normally been putting out. Recently I've been putting out about half-hour length videos talking about whatever features of films or videos or TV shows that I've found relevant, and I wanted to talk about it in light of my faith, preferably more explicitly than otherwise. But with this video, I'm trying to motivate myself to put these videos out more frequently with some more consistency and regularity. There have been a lot of things going on in life and work and things like that that have caused me to take pause and not put out these videos as frequently as I had hoped from the beginning. However, I'm hoping that by doing this segmented version of the videos, I will be a little more consistent. So my hope is to kind of write a few thoughts about whatever movie, TV show, video, subject, whatever, maybe a news story, either in light of the faith or of movies, of art, of culture, that either have been on my mind for a long time or that I just decided to think about that day and write out my thoughts from the start. So without further ado, I'm going to do just a few segments and kind of like a news company, but not just news, just also giving my reviews and thoughts about things. So hopefully that will offer a little more regularity and consistency in my scheduling and putting out these videos. If you guys have any suggestions or ideas or thoughts about what I should talk about or even watch and review, stuff like that, feel free to reach out either by the comments or if you have my contact information, feel free to do that as well. Chapter 1, Lady Ballers. So, the Daily Wire has been picking up speed on the entertainment front, outright going against mainstream Hollywood and taking on more and more of its audience. So this is a basic principle of business, that if a supplier or producer doesn't offer the goods that the customer is looking for, then another supplier or producer is more than welcome to go ahead and just take those customers. If they supply what the customer wants for better prices or for a better deal, whatever the case may be. In this case, it would be in the battle of the culture wars. So Disney has been pushing a lot of, Disney, for example, mainstream Hollywood generally, but has been pushing a lot of liberal and leftist anti-Christian moves in a majority of its films. There is the occasional excellent film that doesn't have any of that agenda pushed into it, and actually does quite well in the box office. It is, in this case, that's what the Daily Wire is doing and has done and will continue to do in the fight in the culture wars, which is strategically making immediate moves when any production studio, Disney, makes a politically correct blunder, Snow White, and loses more and more of its audience to another studio, Daily Wire. This strategy has seemed to be working very well for the Daily Wire, and as far as the battle of business goes, they're doing quite well as far as the battle of business goes. Sorry, I read my script wrong. They're doing more than most conservative entertainment companies, excepting perhaps Angel Studios, but they are certainly among the biggest names in that sphere for doing so. So the latest in Daily Wire's production features a sports comedy hearkening to those of the early 2000s, such as Dodgeball, Talladega Nights, Hot Rod, The Longest Yard, the Adam Sandler version. I'm not really familiar with the Burt Reynolds version, but with a kind of transvestite twist, kind of like Some Like It Hot, Mrs. Doubtfire, White Chicks. Those kinds of movies. So Lady Ballers, it may be produced by a politically conservative studio, but carries a very socially relevant message, namely that men and women's sports goes against the very idea of the division of those categories: men's sports, women's sports. And any crossover makes for bad, it makes for no fun and bad sports, and exactly why it is damaging to society. So there are a couple of crucial moments in the film that speak not only to women shouldn't be in men's sports, but also that women do have value in society. Aside from that, there's this part where Boring's character is talking to his daughter about this, and he says that sports are just things men made up, so they had something to be good at. Comedy aside, it is something that men are fairly invested in a majority of time, more than the women, at least physically and personally. The film is excellent in concept, fairly executed, but I have to say it deserves no standing ovation. So for one thing, I think standing ovations, generally speaking, are given out more than they ought to be. When I was in college, we would have regular speakers, and we would somehow we would practically automatically give them standing ovations at the end of their speech, even when they didn't really deserve it. I think people are just in the habit of, when someone is speaking to and supporting a cause that they too support, they want to give them their full support, right? The friend of my friend is my friend, right? So the story focuses on Rob, a high school basketball coach who misses the glory days of 2008, when his teams actually cared about winning and glory in sports, about trying. He finds out that there's a fad about men pretending to be women. Transgenderism is rising in popularity. His 8-year-old daughter is being taught this in school, among other leftist promotions. He decides to use this popular trend to his advantage and brings his old team, now middle-aged guys barely making it through life, to participate in a tournament meant specifically for women. He also ran into one of these players who is a transvestite waitress, server at some weird restaurant, which is how the conversation gets sparked in the first place. So while Rob, the coach, was looking for money, fame, and glory, he realizes that this is a big lie, and the more he leans into this idea, the more he and his team suffer from indignity, infamy, and loss of family and values. Now, as I already stated, the movie was good in concept, but delivered only so much of what it could have. So before I speak to what the Daily Wire itself could do better in movies in general, based on this film, I don't think they were trying super hard. I think it was pretty much. I don't know. I honestly don't know how long Jeremy Boring was working on that script, but I believe the shooting and editing and everything, all of that just took place over the course of about 6 months. It was relatively low budget film. So I'm impressed by the production level that they brought, and even the writing is much better than just trying to make fun of the transgenderism movement. More on that in a second. So obviously, the Daily Wire is a conservative production studio. It at first only featured news and commentary, but its mission is to actually affect culture, actually make things for culture, make art. So you have a lot of the Daily Wire hosts making things, right? Besides doing their commentary on culture, you have Andrew Klavan, who is a renowned novelist. You have Michael Knowles, now starting out his cigar company. You have Brett Cooper, who is an actress before she worked with the Daily Wire and is now working on their Pendragon cycle and many other productions, Snow White. You also have Jeremy Boring, who, yeah, admittedly, he did try to make it in Hollywood. He didn't make it in Hollywood. He didn't really like Hollywood, so he decided to do his own thing with the Daily Wire, co-CEO with, at least at first, with Ben Shapiro, to put out a conservative voice in media. So they have this conservative outlook and push in their art, but sometimes that can be a problem when it comes to art. I'm having trouble figuring out how I feel about pushing their any politics in general into art. I think they make good points in that art is supposed to reflect culture. It's supposed to be the mirror up to the culture, at the very least, if not push ideas into culture to move it forward, right? Politics is downstream of culture. Culture is downstream of art. The whole idea of Daily Wire is to provide entertainment now, to provide entertainment for an ignored audience, preferably with conservative values, but sometimes it suffers a little bit from leaning in too much for the viewership. At least 30% of the comedy I found in the film did rely heavily on the presence of the Daily Wire's own political commentators as cameos, most notably Matt Walsh, who plays a character completely different from the one he often portrays on his show with the Daily Wire. Michael Knowles, Brett Cooper, Andrew and Spencer Clavin, even the notorious Ben Shapiro makes... Okay. Ben Shapiro in this film makes a stupidly hilarious appearance and delivers one of my unreasonably favorite lines, which I cannot say on this show. But nevertheless, the film is directed at an audience which, as far as I can tell, the studio already possesses. I'm sure that the promotion of Lady Ballers gained them a lot more subscribers to their channel. And the whole idea of what they're trying to do in their mission, they cannot achieve that by offering it to any other streaming service, because no other streaming service is willing to have any of their productions on their service, which is why they distribute not only their own films. Lady Ballers and Terror on the Prairie, if I understand it correctly, are the first films that the Daily Wire itself has produced. Before that, it is distributed. It is distributed Run, Hide, Fight. It is distributed Shut In. It is distributed the that superhero one with Carrie Elwes. So that is the only place where those films are able to be viewed. 1 second. The Hyperions. That's what it is. Sorry, just had to do a quick IMDb check. Yeah, and even on IMDb, it doesn't have any suggestions as to where you should find this. Where you should find it, The Hyperions, a comedy distributed, not produced, by the Daily Wire. It's on Daily Wire Plus, in case you were wondering. So the Daily Wire relies heavily on its own audience for the humor, or at least 30% of the humor that it has. Like I say, one of my favorite lines is a line by Ben Shapiro. A good portion of comedy comes from the irony of Matt Walsh's character to the character he portrays in his regular show, right? A steadfast conservative, maybe overly conservative guy who satirizes the left. He produced and starred in his own documentary, What is a Woman, also distributed on Daily Wire Plus. So I don't know where the camera cut off. Nevertheless, this film is directed at an audience which the studio already possesses. Yeah, so Matt Walsh features prominently in this film, more than the other commentators. and he provides some irony because, especially at the very end, he is not. He kind of pulls a twisted Yago move where he is not what he is. He is portraying what seems to be a very hippie liberal kind of character. Maybe your classic conservatives image of leftists, and where there's a stereotype, there's truth. But the idea of exaggeration is for the humor there, right? Nonetheless, you could probably see, aside from the irony that it is Matt Walsh playing that character, you could see why that character itself is funny in itself. So they do save themselves a lot, despite the cameo reliance. Michael Knowles and Brett Cooper play these newscast reporters who become overly leftists because otherwise they'll probably lose their jobs, or at least that's the implication. And that is the truth of what is happening in a lot of news and media, is that you'll lose your job, you'll lose sponsorship if you don't support this agenda. They do a lot of jabs at the news, also quite entertaining. They also do a lot of slapstick comedy and some funny one-liners. So it is overall quite funny, good writing, excellent production value, for I'm sure a low budget film. And boring is not. He's no Steve Carell, who I imagine they would have loved to have as Rob. But they do get some good laughs, some good lines, and a good film overall. I can't say it's one of the best films of all time. I think it's one of those movies that is just joining the list of films that are working to turn the tide. It's a little bit by a little bit, but many pebbles on a scale will tip it further and further. So the Daily Wire has seen entertainment companies such as Disney make the wrong moves as entertainers, which in turn were the wrong moves as a business, because they were entertainers before they were a business. The way they entertain and the value of their entertainment grew to be a good business model. Now, what Daily Wire is attempting to do seems to me to be, in some way, the opposite. As a business with the ability to entertain, right? It makes a good business move, which would logically manifest in a good form of entertainment. Which, admittedly, I did laugh at Lady Ballers. It did the job. And I'll get to a few other notes in this script in a little bit. So it seems at this time they are not making art for art's sake. They are making art because people aren't receiving the art around them. So they're proposing the alternative to what is around them. It is a business move first, entertainment second. The hope is that while Disney becomes a successful business by producing beautiful entertainment, Daily Wire will become a producer of beautiful entertainment by being a successful business. Now, what is its business? Its business is now providing entertainment, news, and commentary. It's starting to switch its genre, personality, from news and commentary, or politics and news and commentary, whatever you will see on your podcast genres, into arts and entertainment. That's what it's trying to do. It hasn't quite reached that yet, but it's definitely moving there. I don't have a problem with the cameos. I I myself am a big fan of Andrew Klavan and Michael Knowles. Um, but let's do a thought experiment. If you could find someone who would watch it and didn't know about the Daily Wire, would they find Lady Ballers funny? I think the answer would be yes, but they would be more likely to prefer, say, Tropic Thunder or Mrs. Doubtfire or even Happy Gilmore over Lady Ballers, as far as their preference of comedy goes. In this instance, it's like Hallmark or the Christian films we all complain about, who give their audience what they wanted and what they already knew. For Lady Ballers, it was simply that men can't become women, much less legitimately play their sports. Furthermore, the premise of the film takes a while to settle, and whatever subplots that appear don't develop much at all. Most of the comedy is slapstick and a few solid zingers, but the pacing and absurdity versus realism could have been given a little more attention. So what I mean by that, absurdity versus realism, is that a lot of comedies go for the this is a comedy, so every other line at the least has to be funny, or every bit of timing has to be funny. Which is a fair assumption, but I don't think it leads towards a balanced comedy experience. Because comedy needs to have some straightness, no pun intended regarding this film, but it works, as well as and realism, as well as the comedy and the absurdity. So there has to be this nice balance. They went for more of the absurdity and the comedic timing and zingers than they did for the realism. They have some serious moments and some mirrors up to reality, but only for a few moments. Now, like I say, there were a few lines and moments that got me to laugh. Ben Shapiro, again, the most unreasonably funny line. And it was censored even on Daily Wire Plus. I was impressed by the brevity of Lady Baller's shooting and at the scale of the production, the lights, the cinematography, the makeup, etc. It was fantastic. Whatever you may say about Jeremy Boring, the star and the producer of the film, he knows how to bring in quality equipment and how to find an audience. While there will be no Oscars given to this film, to quote the Critical Drinkers review of the movie, it moves the Daily Wire ever closer to becoming a predominant storyteller, and I look forward to hearing more of their progress. All right, so just a few more thoughts, unscripted. Yeah, like I say, think the only two problems I had with Lady Ballers as a comedy was that, or the only two or three problems. It was a really good concept, and I think it was just a. So I'm gonna be copying the Critical Drinkers review because I agree with it to some extent. I think the pacing and the length of the film were a little rocky. There were a few moments in the film that I think were almost afterthoughts as far as the story goes, because I think a good portion of the script or the story were written, and then they realized, wait, there are a couple things that I think we can address and we can sneak in here. And so there wasn't quite as much attention to those subplots, one might say, as there was to the overall plot of men dominating women's sports. So, spoiler alert, I'll give you a couple seconds to scramble to the next section of this video. Yeah. Okay, so there are two moments in the film that, or two parts of the film that could have used a little more development. First off, there was a moment where there's a time where one of the players actually starts thinking that he is transgender. And that is one of the realistic things that does happen when people even just pretend to be transgender, or however that would work. They start actually thinking this and thinking that they're more comfortable this way. They're being treated better, maybe, and life is suddenly a little better for them when that happens. That's one of the dangers of it. And they give this character this moment of reflection on that, and he's kind of slapped out of it by his coach, because his coach is the one who's trying to lie and get glory this way. So that could have used maybe a little more development to reconcile the length of the film. The other part of it is this other moment, again, where the coach is encouraging someone, where the daughter wants to be transgender. The 8-year-old kid who came up with the idea of transgenderism, or at least gave her dad the idea to use that as a means of getting back into sports. She says that men are better at sports, right? Primarily, anything physical. And he encourages her that women are much better at being nurturing, being loving, and being that home of consolation in human society. It's given a few minutes, but I think it could have been maybe more emphasized through the art and the writing throughout the movie. Again, the film is fun to watch. It's better than some of the comedies coming out. It's not perfect, but it's good. And I don't think we should let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think we can definitely do better. I think we can move further on. Lady Ballers is the #1 comedy this year, but I don't think it's going to be invited to the Academy Awards. I think the Daily Wire. I look forward to hearing more of the Daily Wire's projects. It sounds like they're getting a couple more fun projects on the way. Obviously, the Pendragon Cycle, the Snow White, in-your-face Disney kind of movie, and even an adult animation TV show. And I don't know how adult it's going to be, but they all look interesting. They all look entertaining, and I hope the best for the Daily Wire. Speaking of good studios really making it, I promised that I would eventually talk about my opinion of the box office hit Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel as the heroic Tim Ballard. The film told a true story about the horrors of human trafficking, especially of children. God's children are not for sale. The tagline provides a basic insight to the nature of the film, that it is Christian and that it is undenounceable. So this made it hard for any serious critic to say anything bad about the film. And of course, I'll just keep going. No matter how little whatever wasn't the best about the film really affected the purpose of the film. But now that the wave of affection for it has dropped just a bit, meaning that it is no longer riding the waves of social media, except by Angel Studios itself, I figure it is a good time as any to say something that has been on my mind since its opening weekend, and I saw it opening weekend. Or perhaps I think I saw it actually the weekend following. So we have to be careful as Christians and conservatives to distinguish a victory in the culture war versus a victory in a battle of the culture war. This is something that I heartily agree with my good friend Michael Knowles, in that conservatives conservatives generally like to say that we won the whole thing when we've only won a victory, like when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Some people were saying, yeah, we're done, we're good. No, this is only the beginning. There is so much more to be done. So, anyway, Sound of Freedom. It was a major win for those of us who supported its message and the message behind it, one of giving mainstream Hollywood the bird, now becoming a common trend with conservative media, as I pointed out in my review on Lady Ballers. The box office results of Sound of Freedom were a victory in a single battle. Oh, excuse me. So the message obviously is God's children are not for sale, and that human trafficking is wrong, and it is a reality that we have to fight, and many people's eyes and ears are closed to that reality, and mouths are closed to that reality, and it should have been a unifying film where we all agreed with it and decided to do something about it. Possibly, paying forward the movie is one thing that Angel Studios recommended, but that not much more happened from it. Now, the box office results of Sound of Freedom were a victory in a single battle. That even a Christian, really a human film at its core, it's about protecting children. It's not even just about the Christian values, it's about the human values. As I say in my video on The Office, Christian and really Catholic values are the human values. Human values are the same as the Christian and Catholic values. I keep separating Catholic from Christian, but that's not because they are separating. I'm distinguishing. There's a distinction without a difference. Catholics are Christians. Their particular sect of Christianity. I'm a Catholic, so I emphasize that sect of Christianity, and I promote that sect of Christianity. Box office results of Sound of Freedom. It gave unexpected summer blockbusters, such as the dominant. It gave expected summer blockbusters, such as the dominant duo Barbenheimer, a run for their money, as well as surpass a butchered sequel to a popular franchise produced by a domineering entertainment company. I mean, of course, the Disney-fied edition of Indiana Jones, a necrophiliac raping of a dead franchise, if ever there was one. All of this to say is that we Christian conservatives enjoyed that victory, but I want to make clear that it was a momentary victory for the time being, and we had and still have no clue if the tides are totally turning. We see signs of it. What we have to do is we got to keep pushing that movement. When I watched the film, I expected it to be a masterpiece of art because everyone kept talking about it. And while it was good as far as artistic merit goes, it wasn't great. I would watch, like if I were just looking for art, I would watch Gone with the Wind, or I would watch The Godfather. I would watch all these epic and masterpiece films before I would watch Sound of Freedom. It dominated a conservative mark of the culture wars, as like a statue of some historic figure or a symbol of a great cause. It may carry some artistic merit, but that wasn't the point. That's something that I was missing for a long time, and I was a little frustrated with Sound of Freedom because of it. But now, the point for this film is to spread a Christian message, a human message, and to do so, by the means of a story. Now, it is a true story, it's a historic story, so it only had so much room for the poetic and artistic involvement and license. And for what they were aiming at, they did a fantastic job. It was a good film, but we have yet to see if it will become a great film. We would look back on it as a great piece of art, or if at the most it will perhaps just stand as a historic landmark in the midst of the battleground for the culture wars. That is my understanding and view of Sound of Freedom and how it relates to us as artists and as Christians and as warriors in this war. Speaking of landmark films, this Christmas season, if you and your loved ones are, old enough to watch it, go watch the film Love Actually. If you're comfortable watching an R-rated Christmas rom-com, you will thoroughly enjoy this movie. Maybe you have like the TV version, and I believe that will only be PG if it is. Then watch it. You will thoroughly enjoy this movie. It is rated R for some nudity, sexuality, and language, but once you get over that, once you kind of just let that be, it is a surprisingly good film. It encourages more than the erotic, emotional side of love. Now, granted, it has some of that. I mean, the sexuality and nudity that makes it R, that's a given. But the fact is that all those sequences point to something beyond it. It's not centered on that erotic love, as many rom-coms try to be. So they make a point, in fact, to portray a bond between two actors within the film industry. But the whole idea of that is that that their profession has of being in the nude, they're lighting doubles apparently, being in the nude and simulating, not even physically performing, but simulating sexual acts for porn, has absolutely nothing to do with their love story and their relationship. They are actually fond of each other, not of each other's bodies, and they enjoy each other's company and conversation. When they get together in the end, come on, it's not a spoiler, you know what's coming. It is actually one of the most wholesome relationships of the film, in contrast to, say, a man in love with his best friend's wife, featuring Keira Knightley, or the husband slipping into an affair with his secretary, featuring Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson. Another excellent bond that is shown in the relationship is a relationship between a widower and his stepson. So the stepfather, spectacularly portrayed by Liam Neeson, and I'll get to more about Liam Neeson in just a bit. He's concerned with helping his son get the attention of a girl at school whom the boy is in love with. Now, while the kid may be a bit young for dating, in my speculative opinion, it is a very sweet and actually quite beautiful thing to see this man help his charge in his relationship with women, and to see them both bonding as men over this shared experience. But what strikes me probably the most, as it would likely strike most critics, is so Hugh Grant plays the fictional prime minister in this film, and he has the opening lines in the movie.
Whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinion's starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed. But I don't see that. Seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around.
So these are the lines from which the film receives its title. Love doesn't just show up and leave. A true love, lasts a lifetime. It is found between fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. All of these, and those characters shown in the film, are versions of love that are, or many of them are versions of love that are other than eros, or just sexual, desirous love. There's a love of family, a selfless love that is found in the film, or even the desire for it. Some of the portrayals of these forms of love are more or less realistic in the end, but each of them have their place in the world. What easier time than Christmas, the celebration of the most powerful being becoming the most vulnerable, to become vulnerable ourselves, and to share the season with those we truly love. And I think love actually shows that. Several weeks ago, I think this was as I was just starting my YouTube channel, I was talking to someone, and it was over beers, and the conversation turned into, is entertainment objective or subjective? Most of us react by saying, entertainment is subjective, right? Yeah, of course. But obviously, what we see and qualify as entertaining necessarily denotes subjectivity, but let's talk about why. For those of you who hate philosophy, I tried to dumb this down a little bit, but you're going to have to accept that grammar rules are also included in this. So subjective and objective and stuff like that play into that. So first, the concept of entertainment is itself an objective reality, right? An idea like akin to virtue or math, something that is just in our minds. It has existence and extension to some degree, and everyone has their image or idea of what that is, often in some archetypal example in their brain, in their mind, in the mind's eye. It exists as an idea, though it may have varying manifestations. This may appear to prove subjectivity, because we have our own little manifestations of it in our mind, but the fact is the idea itself, aside from the manifestations in our brain, proves its existence, or the manifestations of something in each of our minds proves the idea's overall objective and universal existence. So to draw from the famous trivium, in order to use logic, so the famous trivium is grammar, logic, rhetoric.
Exclusively in that order.
In order to use logic, you first must go to grammar. And don't mind if I go ahead and do that right now, because we do use the word subject and object, subjective, objective, in the way we structure sentences.
This is where the fun begins.
So in an active sentence, a subject acts on an object. So we have, I'm going to integrate Daily Wire's new kids entertainment program, Ben Key, for this example. So Chipchilla entertains the boy. In this instance, Chipchilla acts as the subject, and the boy as the object. The subject, Chipchilla, acts upon an object, the boy. That is, Chipchilla entertains it. If we perceive the statement in its entirety, it is objective, right? Because the subject is acting on an object. Okay? Doesn't take... There's no interpretation difference between people. It's just the state. It's just a fact, right? It's objective. And it's true, right? In this instance, Chipchilla entertains the boy. We can see something like that being true. If we then perceive the object, just focus on the object, we can see that the boy is still entertained. Now, this is passive rather than an active statement. right? The object and the subject are switched, and the type of action is also switched. It's now a passion because something is happening to the object, or which is now kind of the subject. The act is changed to a pass is a question mark I have. Anyway, when a sentence is passive, the boy is entertained by Chipchilla, the object is the focus and is being passive to the act or to the subject, or it is perceiving it. So I have noted here, I decided to use the language of perception as opposed to reception, because reception is the act of something coming upon you, but perception is the manner in which something comes upon you. If I hit you, you are receiving a blow to the face, but you are perceiving that I do not enjoy your countenance and that I intend to amend it. The passions are something that happen to you. You do not choose to feel emotions, but they come upon you instead, and they affect reality as such in that instance. Hence, they are called passions, and those things that you do are called actions. But back to focusing on the object. The contrast of what is entertaining the boy, the context of what is entertaining the boy is irrelevant because we see that he is in fact entertained. But when we perceive the subject, the alleged entertainer, everything changes. Is Chipchilla entertaining?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Subjectivity relies on the perceptivity of something, like emotion, feelings, or opinions, whereas objectivity is the reality of a given thing, regardless of perception. If the source of entertainment isn't perceived as such, it is no longer entertaining. To say that Chipchilla is entertaining is subjective, because it requires you to perceive it as entertaining, and to be impassioned by the entertainment. But if you do not perceive Chipchilla as entertaining, it is no longer entertaining, and it is therefore subjective, due to the sole focus being the subject itself and nothing to modify it.
What?
But to say that it entertains someone, or that someone is entertained, all of these are objective statements. Now, clearly, entertainment is subjective. I just wanted to go through a roundabout way of explaining how. So, grammar helps logic, and logic will help the rhetoric. So, there are objective ways of talking about entertainment and saying that something is entertaining. And there's the one subjective way out of the four ways of talking about entertainment. All right, speaking of entertainment and controversy, lately there's been some controversy surrounding the announcement of Hallow's Advent Challenge narrator Liam Neeson. Some background on Hallow in case you're not aware of it. If you watch YouTube videos as a Catholic, you are certainly going to have run into this. Hallow is an online prayer app, and it's a Catholic app, but it is the best and biggest Christian prayer app in the nation. Liam Neeson will be acting alongside the Chosen star, Jonathan Rumi, as well as many other actors. Now, the voice of Aslan is now partnering with Hallow to read snippets of C.S. Lewis' works during this time of preparation for Christmas. Upon hearing the announcement, many big-name Catholics bewailed and ground their teeth due to the Taken star's previous stance on abortion in his home country of Ireland. His work and influence on the culture in part furthered the Irish nation into sadly permitting abortion up to 12 weeks, often further. To quote Lila Rose, president of the pro-life advocacy group Live Action, so I'm drawing these quotes and several of the events and phrasings from the website National Catholic Register. You can find the article on there that I'm talking about. So, quote Lila Rose, Neeson, a strident pro-abortion activist and the public face of a pro-abortion campaign, should not be the face for a Catholic prayer company's Advent campaign, end quote. Furthermore, David Burke, the president of the Avila Institute and former president and COO at EWTN, has said the same voice that was heard in anti-Catholic, pro-abortion video advertisements in Ireland will be offering prayerful reflections to Catholics this sacred season. End quote. So in response to this, Alex Jones, the CEO of the Catholic Prayer Company, stated, quote, "One of the ways we reach out to those who are falling away is by partnering with many different talented voice actors. These actors read scripts written by our theology team. Many of these actors come from different faith backgrounds and may have done things in the past or hold personal views that we would not agree with. By having someone on the app, we in no way claim to endorse or stand behind their past actions or personal views." End quote. I am personally backing Alex Jones on this decision. Morally, I cannot do so financially or by any other means. Now, why? I think he said it himself. But National Catholic Register included the report of the ongoing events that Jones' statement included meditation on Christ walking and dining with sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes. His whole plan was to bring them into a relationship with God in whatever way he could, aside from sin, which he couldn't do. God cannot sin, and so he would walk and talk with sinners, just being with them, and influencing and bringing his influence to them in their daily life. Similarly, Hallow is, taking Liam Neeson as a partner for this project. And we should be rejoicing that Neeson has decided to join forces with the devout Catholic company. He is of Irish Catholic upbringing, but has since fallen away. What better manner to welcome him back to the church than by asking him to use his talents for the betterment of society? And perhaps even further, the betterment of of the church's society, not just the world, but the church's. What better act of love than to offer a home to someone who is looking for solace? It is not our place to judge sinners, because we are all such. Rather, we ought to help each other in whatever way we can, and involving them and including them in the task of working for the greater glory of God. So God bless Liam Neeson, God bless the Irish people, and may God bless us all, especially those at Hallow this Advent season. I hope this was somewhat edifying, and that my words might mean something. If I am not doing anything either in line with church teaching, or if I am just delivering this in a bad format, please let me know what else I can do. Tell me what you want me to talk about. Tell me what ideas you might have for the production of this channel. I'm open to anything, and I am more than willing to. I actually would love to improve in whatever way I possibly can, whether that's the look of the studio, or if that's in the props I have on my table, or maybe the style that I have. Maybe I should do it just on the chair, or however you guys want me to do it. Just let me know. I can't promise that I'll make all your wishes come true, but I will definitely pay attention, and I will listen to what you guys have to say. In the meantime, God bless and happy Advent.